Ot al yadcha. Aha, you know what? Then we may have a screen share. There's a recording in progress. I'm going to try.
One second, work on it.
Right, okay, Mickey, I'm going to wait. Give me a heads up when the screen share is available. And so Rabbi Akiva, who is, by the way, pretty much of a mystic, remember, who says that Shir HaShirim is Kodesh Kodashim? Rabbi Akiva. So, and if we want to go mystical, Rabbi Akiva finds a significance in every single word in the Torah, even if it's a connecting word, even if it's a connecting vav, or even if it is a crown on a letter. So, if we're looking for something mystical, Rabbi Akiva, so we talked about the fact that there is an ot, and God has provided us with a number of otot, signs of the special relationship between us and Him. They are tefillin was one, Shabbat and Yom Tov the other, and the two should not clash. So when it's Shabbat and Yom Tov, we don't wear tefillin. When it's a regular weekday, we wear tefillin. So we're always connected to God through this special sign that He has given us. That's the Gemara in Masechet Eruvin. Tosafot there say something interesting. Yamim prat Shabbatot v'Yom Tov v'lichura en lalech tefillin b'chol hamoed. The Tosafot, medieval Ashkenaz, raised the question of Chol HaMoed. So do you wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed or not? Is it like a weekday, or is it more like Shabbat and Yom Tov? Well, the answer is that there is an Isur Melacha on Chol HaMoed. I assume you know, and Chol HaMoed, although we generally do whatever we want, we treat it as a weekday, actually, there is a list of things that we shouldn't do on Yom Tov. Some people do keep them. I had an incident in my law school in New York when the dean came to me, Jewish dean, said, you know what, I had a strange request from a student. The student said, I'm due to hand in a paper. Turns out to be the intermediate days of Pesach, not the Yom Tov at the beginning, or Yamim Tovim in New York, not the second 2 days at the end, but in the middle. Now, I know about the festival and its 2 days at the beginning of Pesach. I know about the festival at the end of Pesach, which is 2 days, but I've never heard about anything in the middle. And if you tell me that there's a basis for this student's request, then I will honor it. And I said, yes. I knew the student. He'd studied in Lakewood for 10 years before coming to law school, and he clearly did not write on Chol HaMoed. And that's just one example of the things that you don't do. However, the thing about Chol HaMoed is that it comes with a list of major exceptions. In other words, you can't do all sorts of things on Chol HaMoed, but we have a whole list of principles. Simchat Yom Tov, it'll make your life more pleasant. You'll enjoy the Chag. Or Davar Aved. It's a very important one, which means, Jean, I know that you're happy to explain to us. Davar Aved.
If you miss an occasion to win some money, you are allowed to do the necessary to win it.
You don't need to sustain a financial loss, okay? So anything that you really need to do now, and it'll be more difficult, complicated, costly if you don't do it now, you can do on Chol HaMoed. So the exceptions generally cover most of the things we want to do. Have fun, go to the seaside, visit with our family, and if we have to work in order not to sustain financial loss, then we have to go to work, okay? But nevertheless, Chol HaMoed says the Tosafot do have an Isur Melacha, and the same thing goes on the positive side. In other words, during Chol HaMoed Sukkot, you have to eat in a sukkah. During Chol HaMoed Pesach, you may not eat chametz. So both negatively and positively, Chol HaMoed does partake of the Yom Tov nature, of the nature of the Yom Tov. So it could be that it is compared to Yom Tov, and just as on Yom Tov we don't wear tefillin, so in Chol HaMoed we should not be wearing tefillin. Okay? וכן פסקו בהלכות גדולות. And that's the Bahag. Okay, אבל בירושלמי, Rabbi Moshe of Kusi, אבל בירושלמי, and this is the Tosafot, Ashkenazim, who are citing the Yerushalmi. By the way, the Yerushalmi had a great influence on early Ashkenazi Jewry, the 9th, 10th, and 11th centuries in Kilot Shum, Shpaya Vormaiza, Magensa, Rabbi Gershom Maor Hagolah, the Yeshivot. Okay, let's see.
Okay,
if we,
Mickey.
Okay.
we have a share screen. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Bis nachher. Danke
Okay,
vielmals.
very good. Okay.
Steuer. Oif Simchas. So we're actually going to read now from the Tosafot, line 11. Aval Biushalmi, Perek Elu Megalchin, Halacha Daled in Moed Katan, Mashma de Tzarich Lahaniach. The Yerushalmi implies that we need to tefillin. From Italy, it went to the Rhineland, Shum. So actually, Nusach Ashkenaz is Eretz Israel. Nusach Sfard is Babel. Okay. So, lot of Yerushalmi gets into the Tosafot and to Ashkenaz. Hahu Gavra da'avad tefillin atal kamei derav amar le'zil ketovle. You can write tefillin on Chol HaMoed because you need it. Why do you need it? To fulfill the mitzvah. And if you need to do a mitzvah on Chol HaMoed, you can also do anything. Or that Tzorech HaMoed yachol lichtov af la'acherim, and you can write for others too. V'chein Amad Dabar. What does Amad Dabar mean?
So
Look and see
people are used to do.
what the people do. Dabar is Shehem Bachutz, Amad the people. Huk Chazi, go and see my Amad Dabar. In other words, the people also are a repository of knowledge. Od mivin rayim b'sof perek Amad Beitza gabe mashalchin tefillin. You can send tefillin as a gift on Yom Tov. Okay? And it has really to be used on Yom Tov itself. If you couldn't use the tefillin on Yom Tov, then you would have a problem. You can always find a way to wriggle out of these things and say sending a present of tefillin to somebody who's going to use them after Yom Tov, but the direct shot is that they're being used on Yom Tov. It would seem that the Tosafot prefer the Yerushalmi and the approach that we do wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed. It's not considered to be enough of a Yom Tov to qualify for the status of an Ont. Now, let's have a look at Rabbi Yitzchak Karo. Rabbi Yitzchak Karo was the uncle of Rabbi Yosef Karo, and he, of course, was a Sephardi, Spain. He, of course, had to leave, and all good Jews had to leave, and eventually he ends up in Turkey, okay? Actually, the Balkans first, in Andrianopoli, okay? And then he gets to Istanbul, okay? And he became a rabbi and well-known Rosh Yeshiva there. And Rabbi Yosef Karo was orphaned from his father at a very early age. And he was basically brought up in his tender years by his uncle, Rabbi Yitzchak Karo. Rabbi Yitzchak Karo is cited in a tshuva by Rabbi Joseph Karo in the Bet Yosef in relation to a major issue in Jewish law. Do we do Yibum or do we prefer to do Chalitza? Now, yeah, we Ashkenazim certainly don't do Yibum anymore. Okay? We haven't done it for a long time. Sephardim, there's a dispute. Okay? I'm not going to go into the reasons why, but I want to read Rabbi Karo. ראינו חכמי הקבלה שסברתם שמצוות ייבום קודם למצוות חליצה. Kabbalists say, always do Yibum if you can. Why? It's to do with Gilgul Neshamot. Now, we think that the reason why Yibum is, of course, what we call the levirate marriage. Correct, Bernard?
Yep.
Levirate marriage. Why does the Torah say that if there are two brothers, one of whom is married and is childless, and then he dies. His younger brother has to step into his shoes. The brother has to step into the shoes of the dead brother and has to consummate a marriage with the Yivama, with his sister-in-law. Okay, so the reasons are various. They could be financial. They could be to do with the fact that the male line of the firstborn is one that gives the line its importance, Zecher and Zachar. But the Kabbalah says Gilgul Neshamot. We need to reincarnate the soul of the dead brother. And I haven't gone into the idea of Gilgul Neshamot, reincarnation, in the Zohar or in Kabbalah, but it's a very important idea, as it is in many mystical theories and theosophies. So the Kabbalah is very strict about the fact that you always need to do Ibum. Imken, Ra'ui Lifsok Halakha Kahem. Rabbi Caro thinks, as a Spaniard, coming from the period of the flourishing of the Kabbalah, from the son of the Raavad. Who is the son of the Raavad? Rabbi
Yitzchak Sagi Nahor.
Yitzchak Sagi Nahor. The same period as Rabbi Yosef Jikitila and the brothers Ezra and Azrael of Gerona, okay, and the Ramban. So the Kabbalah is very important. Now, and it says, of course, line 17, this is definitely what our reasoning impels us to do. If the Kabbalah argues directly with the Talmud, if Sokadin Ketalmud Aruch Shebadenu, then we have to follow the Gemara. It's an open issue, it's an argument, there's no psak halacha, ela ish ledarko panu, v'yesh hachra b'kabbalah kechav mehem, hachra hi lechach me'akabbalah, v'chen mukublani me'rabotai. If there's an argument or an issue is left open in the Talmud, then I can apply Kabbalah. This is the tradition of my teachers. The Raya, and what's my proof? He goes from Yibum to Tfilin on Chol HaMoed. Sorry, b'Chol HaMoed yesh machloket im naniach Tfilin im lo, v'lo ifsika halacha kemi. There's no psak halacha yet, okay, in the 15th century in relation to whether you wear Tfilin or you don't. Amar shematzu chachmei Sfarad ma'amar b'midrash Zohar, and the chachmei Kabbalah found a midrash Zohar. Zohar is all midrash. Shemitzvat tefillin eina noheget b'chol hamoed v'she'asur lahanicham, forbidden to put them on. V'lo hinichum od b'chol hamoed. And so Spanish rabbis exposed to the Zohar of the 13th century all get very scared and they no longer put on tefillin. Mashma that before that they did. V'od sheb'chol Sfarad noagim b'chol adinim u'b'chol inyanei yisur v'heter kisvarat ha-rosh. Now, even though the tradition halachically was that in Spain, the authority was the Rosh, and the Rosh put on tefillin kol hamoed and made the bracha, but once they discovered the Zohar, and they saw that it was forbidden to put on tefillin, they all stopped, right through Spain. And since it is an open issue, Tosafot say, on the one hand, it could be that Chol HaMoed is like an ot, because of the reasons we gave, therefore you should not put on tefillin. On the other hand, Yerushalmi seems to say that you definitely put on tefillin, and it leaves it like that. Then we have the option. If we have the option, we follow the Zohar. The Akshav nahagu b'chol farad, and this is the Bet Yosef, Rabbi Caro himself. Commentary on the Torah, line 25. The Akshav, notice it says now. We see here that the Zohar, the Kabbalah, changed halacha. The beginning, it seems very widely assumed that in Ashkenaz they wore tefillin. The Rosh, who becomes the authority in Spain, even though he originates from Ashkenaz, but he becomes the accepted authority in Spain. He says we put on tefillin, but once the Zohar sets in and becomes a Zohar HaKadosh, has a tremendous influence on the course of halakhic development. Shab, line 25. Na'gu kol bnei Sfarad shelo hinicham b'chol hamoed. A whole of Spanish Jewry doesn't put on tefillin. It's like minhag Sfarad. V'shamati shemikodem hayu manichim otam. Look at that. I heard, says Rabbi Caro, previously, hundreds of years, they all put on tefillin. And Jean will tell us that the Rambam put on tefillin on Chol HaMoed. Correct, Jean?
At least this is the deduction of Rabbi Yos, of the Kesef Mishneh.
The Kesef Mishneh. Well, the Kesef Mishneh is Rabbi Caro, so I think you're going to have to rethink that. However, definitely we go back. They all wore tefillin, apparently. Okay? Kidivrei Arosh, and after that, Matzau shekatav Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai b'mamar echad she'asur lanicham. See, the Zohar says asur. No question of do you or do you not. Zohar has no question that the ot, and if you have a clash of otot, then you're going to produce a disharmony in the sefirot, and as you all know, that is a real no-no. Okay. ועל נמנע מלהניחי בכל המועד, וכן כתב מורי דודי מרנו הרב יצחק קארו ז"ל, או הרב, החכם הרב יצחק קארו ז"ל, my uncle, בתשובה, והמאמר הוא איתה במדרש הנעלם לשיר השירים, על פסוק לריח שמניך טובים. I'm not going to get into Shir HaShirim now. We might do that in the future perhaps, but Shir HaShirim, interpreted by the Zohar in the Munkach publishing. The Munkach edition, I couldn't resist that. So, L'reach shemanecha tovim, how beautiful, how fragrant, okay, is a right ot at the right time, though, okay? V'zeh l'shono Rav Hamnuna Saba. We get into our Sabas and our Yanukas, the whole Zohar cast. Hachi amar ilen inun yamim de'ikrun tovim. There are days which are called Yamim Tovim, the Inun Tfilin. And these are the Tfilin Dereisha, the Tfilin of the head, the Kutsha Berichu Malach Lohon. Remember God's Tfilin? That is the Tfilin that we're talking about. And these become morph into the Yamim Tovim. Valda Ikrun Tovim. Begin the Inun Naharin Bereisha, they shine out of the head. The Kudsha Ilah, with the highest form of, that's with the Shin, okay, and the Dalada. V'chol atar, Yamim Tovim inun tefillin dereisha, the Kudsha Brichu Malach Lahon. Cholot Shel Moed, the Laikre Yom Tov, ilin tefillin de Daroa. These are the tefillin of a Zroa, the Shel Yad. They are less penetratingly luminous and holy, but they are still holy, okay? The Malka Debai Lenatre La'avde. And if you're going to put on tefillin, on Chol HaMoed, human tefillin, on the days when God is wearing his tefillin and showing them, because Bnei Israel olim la regel, showing the kruvim, the whole shebang. Okay? What's the mashal? The malka debai lanatra lavde. A king wants to give his servant something that's going to protect him. Amale avid diokna de chotma dili. Make a picture, an image of my seal. Kol zimna du diokna yitchaze alach. And whenever this seal appears on you, kule alma yizvaun v'yidechilun minach. The whole world will be terrified and in awe of you. Okay, just like the tefillin shorosh are meant to be things that scare away all enemies of God and the Jewish people. Lebatar migoy rachimu ilah the karachim le malka yahev biyadei chutmad gushpanka ilad delay. And then the servant makes a copy of God's seal, and he has that. Kevan da'achid chotma ilad malka biyadei, and he removes God's seal and shavik minei ahu dionka deiu avad. and he now wears the seal that he made. The human seal has displaced the divine seal. Yahu avda dachi chutma ilah damalka beginahu chutma deihu avad, and because he's replaced God's seal with the human seal, vadai bar ketulahu, he's worthy of death. Ahu avda, that slave, begin deihu avad kolna, he has abused, he has put to shame, he has whatever. Bechutma damalka veloch chayishme. He has despised the king's seal, debased, despised, whatever it is, and he's worthy of death. Uvegine kacha sila ama kadisha ledachye chutma damalka ilah leshara alan begin yukna da'anan avdin. And we are forbidden as the holy people to prefer a human ot sign to one given to us by God. Hai b'moed uv'cholo shel moed, and that applies to chol moed as well as to the moed. Kolchken b'Shabbat kula shara alan, where God's entire presence rests upon us. Umeachar shebetalmuda didan lanit ba'edin zebe feirush. Since in the Gemara it's not clear, to Machloket Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Akiva, we saw the Tosafot. There are many Rishonim. Mi yerav libo lageshet lavor bekum va'asei al divrei Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. How could we possibly encourage people to transgress against the words of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Hamafrid kol kach b'yisur ha-nachatan. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Zohar says that you are worthy of death. If you wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed, you're worthy of death. Now that is pretty strong, okay? So there's no question that the Karos, influenced by the Zohar, now say it's absolutely asur to wear tefillin on Chol Shel Moed. And Rabbi Karo, in his Shulchan Aruch, of course, he has to be a little more judicious. And he has to say, Minhag ha'olam haya lanichan. But again, the same historical continuum. The Minhag ha'olam was to put tefillin on Chol Moed ad shebimei Rabbanan Batrai, the most recent rabbis. מצאו בספר הזוהר, לשיר השירים, שמי שמע תפילין בכל המועד, כמי שקוצץ בנטיות. What's that phrase mean? What is kotzetz?
He cuts the plants, the plants.
Well, you need to make it more clear.
In the garden of the Kabbalist.
No, it means that he is kotzetz b'nitiyot. He is a heretic. He's a kofar, as in the story of the Pardes. When you cut the plants, is that you are destroying the fundamentals of Judaism. Kofar ba'ikar. So nobody in Spain wears them anymore. So kesef mishneh hilchot tefillin. Okay. Now, b'chol hamoed gam ken asur laniach tefillin. This is the Shulchan Aruch. So there's no question. Rabbi Yosef Karo totally consistent with the Kabbalah. Da ahuvi. Now we're going to switch out of Sfar to Ashkenaz. We're going to go to Lublin, Poland, in the 16th century, to the Marshal, who is Rabbi
Shlomo Luria.
Shlomo Luria, an Ashkenaz, if there ever was one. Okay, Talmid of Havrusa of the Ramah, Talmid of Reb Sholem Shachna, Reb Yaakov Polak, who brought the learning from Ashkenaz, the Ragma, to Poland, to the east. Da ahuvi. He's answering a question, actually. The question is to do with whether you sit or stand to put on tefillin, okay? Now, who stands when they put on tefillin, Ashkenazim or Sephardim?
Ashkenazim.
And who sit when they put on tefillin?
The others.
The others, Sephardim. Thank you, Jean. You can say the word. Sephardim, okay. So, and we see that in Israel all the time. Where does the sitting come from? The Zohar. Where's the standing come from? It makes sense. If you're doing a mitzvah, you want to stand up and do it in an honorable fashion. So the Marshal was actually asked about the sitting or standing. Da ahuvi. And this is in Poland, as I said, in the 16th century. Chadashimi kerov bao. You've got a whole new lot of from Ashkenazim out there. They all want to be Kabbalists. there is something very attractive about being a Kabbalist. Now, Bernard, I don't think that you would go along with that.
No.
No, correct. Oh, nor would you, Jean. But some people do. They just love the idea of uniforms and symbols and deep significance and all the things we've been talking about. Okay. But Da'ahuvi, and he says, of course, that our rabbis, our ancestors, were foremost gaonim. They follow the Talmud and the poskim. Now look at the different views. Marshal versus Karo. Marshal says, even if Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was to come before us today, and change the minhag. There's not a din here. There's no real psak halachas, whether you sit or stand when putting on tefillin. But the minhag Ashkenaz for hundreds, if not over 1,000 years, was to stand. Marshal says minhagim are very important. These are the minhagim sanctified by the greats of Ashkenaz, from Rabbi Gershom Maor HaGolah right to the present day, the 15th century. Are we going to change that? Of course not. And even if Rashbi was to come and say, change your minhag, la ashkachinam be, we would not pay any attention to Rashbi. Who is he? And of course, what is the Zohar? And did he really write the Zohar? And how much? And all of that. Anyhow, V'gam hu, HaZohar, Katav, Rashbi also wrote in the Zohar, Haminiach tefillin b'chol ha'moed chayav mita. You put on tefillin on chol ha'moed, listen carefully, you're liable to death penalty. I mean, in a spiritual sense, of course. V'anachnu manichim u'mevarchin aleihem. And we put them on and we say a bracha. V'av shebnei Eretz Yisrael einan manichin tefillin klal b'chol ha'moed. Eretz Yisrael do not put on tefillin. V'fi sha'rashba ba'u bitel ha'minhag l'sfi sfarato. Now, it's very interesting. The Marshal says there are Jews who do not put on tefillin on Chol HaMoed, but not because of the Zohar, because of the Rashba, Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet, okay, the halachis, lefi svarato shetafas kedei ri bala Tosafot, because of the opinion of the Ri in the Tosafot, that Chol HaMoed is a ot like tefillin because of the negative bit. There's mlacha. Again, it's a question of whether you say the isur mlacha on Chol HaMoed is midoraita or midrabanan. I'm not going to go into that. We don't have time. But he says, the isur of mlacha on Chol HaMoed is midoraita, and therefore Chol HaMoed is an ot. It's like Yom Tov, but nothing to do with the Zohar. Now, Marshal says, line 6, v'lo keshachul levad divrei Zohar. Nothing to do with the Zohar. Lachen ahuvi, al telech b'derech itam. My advice to you, not to follow the Kabbalists like sheep. Ve'en lecha esek b'nistarot. Stay away from the hidden, secret stuff. Do halakha and the minhagim that have been hallowed throughout the generations. That's the way to go. Now, the Ramah, of course, yes, John.
What was the reaction of the Ashkenazim adopt also the Kabbalistic tradition to say that the Shliach Tzibur end by Hashem Elokechem Emet Kedei Lahashlim Mispar Tevot. Marshal knew that, or that was that
Marshal certainly knew. He is an exceptional, it's a very extreme case. Marshal says, for example, we don't say Ma Tovu Alecha Yaakov. He says you shouldn't say Anim Zmirot except on Yom Kippur night. He has a whole lot of laws about Tefillah that are anything but the Zohar and Kabbalah and mysticism. So the Marshal would say nothing at all that smacks of Zohar.
And the fact that on Tisha B'Av we don't put tefillin, that seems also to have the same origin. And even the Ashkenazim accept that.
No, that's to do with Dinei Avelut. That's Pe'er. Tefillin are Pe'er. they are a sign of, we do put them on in Mincha. We put them on in Mincha. But half a day, Avelut is strong. The rest of the day, from Chatzot onwards, is a Yom Tzom. Now, the special din of Tisha B'Av is Avelut. It's extreme Avelut because it's Avelut of the nation as a whole, Avelut of Klal Yisrael, of Knesset Israel, and therefore we don't put on tefillin in the morning. And we certainly are not mevatel the mitzvah of tefillin. We put them on with brachot for mincha when the din of Avelut is displaced by the din of Yom Tzom. Okay? So that is not an issue. Who was caught in the middle more? The Ramah. The Ramah dabbled in Kabbalah as well as philosophy, and Marshall criticized him on both, and he said you should learn your diktuk. Your Hebrew is shocking. Okay, so the Marshall was a great daktikan, and he said forget philosophy and Kabbalah, just try and improve your classical Hebrew. However, the Ramah is caught a little bit. He says, Yesh omrim she'achol hamoed chayav b'tfilin v'chen noagim b'chol gililot el. He cites the Shulchan Aruch, who says it's asur to put on tefillin. Rabbi Yosef Karo, asur. Says there is, however, an opinion, Yesh omrim, that you are chayav to put on tefillin. And this is the minhag in all these countries in Ashkenaz. We know that the Ramah brought minhag Ashkenaz into its mapah, to his super commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. And to make a bracha. But there are staunch defenders of Ashkenaz. Rabbi Yosef Yosfahan wrote the Yosef Ometz. He was from Frankfurt, and a Talmid Chacham and a Rav in the city, and he codified Minhag Frankfurt Amain. Okay, very important. And he says, "B'chol hamoed yesh isur anachat tefillin al pi Kabbalah, u'machar she'en lanu esek b'nistarot la nahagin al hakin." Frankfurt, we disregard the Kabbalah. That's not what we do, and we all put on tefillin. Now, I found a very cute commentary on the Ramah, who sort of uses a quasi-Kabbalistic idea to say you must wear tefillin. Line 10, V'yesh omrim she'achol hamoed chayav b'tefillin. That's Ramah. Okay, some say you need to put on tefillin. Remez ledavar, a remez. He's becoming a Kabbalist. Ki Shem Hashem nikra alecha. The pasuk Shem Hashem nikra alecha, of course, refers to tefillin shel rosh, according to the commentary of the rabbis. God's name goes with the shin, and you've got the dalet, you've got the yud. B'kaya al shin shel tefillin. That's the shin, Shaddai. The shin hu schum shel yamim shemenya hatfilin b'shana. Now, shin is 300. How many days a year do you wear tefillin? 300. How? Sharei kishetafchit nun bet Shabbatot. 52 Shabbatot and 13 Yamim Tovim from 365 is how much? 50. So you're left with 300. Nisharu Shin Yamim. In order to get your Shin to be 300, you have to lay tefillin on Chol HaMoed. Im ken, api zeh tzarich le'nat tefillin b'chol HaMoed. Menachem Mendel Oyebach. Just in the Ateretz Kenim on the Ramah. But okay, I'm just sort of, and we have to move because we're not going to finish this, just to give you some idea of what is going on here. We start off with a legitimate discussion in the Gemara. The issue is left open. We have Minhag Ashkenaz, and Sfarad is to put tefillin on Chol HaMoed. Zohar makes its appearance, 13th century, and suddenly, as if you like, if I can use this expression, all hell breaks loose. And now Jews are petrified. Will they be liable to the death penalty for putting on tefillin or Chol HaMoed, because you're going to have a disorder in the Sephirotic realm, and suddenly all the Sephardim who are into Kabbalah, into the Zohar, go for not putting on their tefillin. The Ashkenazim say, hold on, this is what we have done. Great rabbis, are we going to change now? No, we are not. By the way, difficult to resist Kabbalah. If you look at the Taz says, Rabbi David Halevi of Ostrog, the son-in-law of the Bach of the old circus of Lublin, Krakow and Lublin, put on tefillin in Poland, but don't make a bracha. Then we find that the Chayei Adam says, make a bracha, but make it quietly. As you see, things are happening. And the minhag Ashkenaz that I certainly knew was that on Chol HaMoed, it's a bit like Rosh Chodesh. We take off our tefillin before Hallel, the Chazan takes them off after Hallel. Bernard Wolfson.
Yes,
That's the thing you would remember from Liverpool, right?
yeah, yes. But I didn't wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed.
Wow. How come?
Well, I think both my two grandfathers were Hasidic.
Ah, that explains. Okay, Hasidim. All right, but as I said, I certainly remember we wore tefillin. Some people indeed made the what? Okay, I'm being told to move on. Okay,
In
now
sorry, I was saying in Islington Shul in Liverpool, if you wore tefillin, if you didn't wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed, you had to daven sort of in the lobby.
there we are. Exactly. And today in Israel, if you do wear tefillin in the Chol HaMoed, you're asked to go to the back of the shul or preferably into the lobby.
Yeah.
As I say, it's all open for whatever. But I want to probe a little bit Rabbi Yosef Karo. He was a Kabbalist and a super Kabbalist. The Magid Mesharim. We do have Brian here, I assume. Brian, can you
Yes,
read
sir.
please? Line 14, the Magid Mesharim.
The Magid Mesharim, Preacher of Righteousness, published in Lublin in 1646 and later in Venice, is a mystical diary in which Rabbi Yosef Karo, during a period of 50 years, recorded the nocturnal visits of the Magid, who was an angelic being acting as his heavenly mentor and presenting itself as the personified Mishnah.
Mishnah and mysticism have a lot in common. The
Maggid spurred him to acts of righteousness and asceticism, exhorted him to study the Kabbalah, and encouraged him to go on Aliyah.
It tells him, by the way, not to take a second glass of wine with his meals, all sorts of things at a very intimate and personal level. The
Maggid taught him many mystical interpretations of passages in the Torah and elaborated on many Kabbalistic ideas and principles, such as reincarnation and resurrection, and makes lots of use of complex gematriot.
Right.
There's very little halachic content in the Magid Mesharim, but one example cited by the Mishnah Berurah is the following.
Now this is the Mishnah Berurah, okay? What does he say? En mevarchin ela yareach ela b'motzei Shabbat. We could, b'motzei Shabbat, we could do Kiddush Levana any night, okay? We count so many nights, 3 nights, we could do, but we all are makpid to do it on Motzei Shabbat. Why? You've put on your fancy male fragrance and you're dressed in your best Shabbos suit. That's the time to greet the new moon. By the way, the moon has a lot of mystical significance. Waxing, waning, leave it to your imagination. למצווה מן המובחר הוא וכדמסיים בהגה וכתב בספר מגיד מישרים. The Mishnah Berurah is citing the Magid Mesharim, a mystical being who appeared to Rabbi Joseph Karo, and we'll sort of talk about, describe how it happened. סימן זה יהיה בידך, בחודש שתברכו ברכת הלבנה במוצאי שבת. See, this is presented as in terms of theurgic iconography. If you will welcome the new moon on Motzei Shabbat, when you're all dressed up nicely and fine and you smell good, timtzeu hatzlacha, then your month is going to be a good month and you'll do well. But when you don't do all these nice things, then the month might go awry, okay? So all of this is heavily Kabbalistic, but we do it all the same. The Maggid is never mentioned. Shmuley, can you read from line 26, please?
The Maggid is never mentioned by Rav Karo, nor by his son, who compiled the list of his writings and was clearly meant to be a private record of Rav Karo's mystical experiences. Although doubts were cast on the authenticity of the Maggid by the Maskilim, its authenticity is now generally accepted.
Now, I want to tell you about what happened. I'm going to skip the next bit because of time, and this bit too. We're going to read from line 9 on page 2, okay? This is page 3. This is, it's not line 9, it's the extract, because I got two different, what's it here? Line 9, yeah. Hiskamnu. Now we're talking about 1532, I think, in Nikopol, in the Balkans. Rabbi Yosef Karo, this is Erev Leil Shavuot. Shavuot night is together with Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz. Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, born in Salonika, another Spanish family of Spanish exiles, another Kabbalist. What is Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz well known to every one of you as the author of Adodi? Exactly. Okay. So he and Rabbi Karo are learning or sitting up. הסכמנו החסיד ואני לעמוד על נפשנו ליל שבועות ולנדוד שינה מעינינו. By the way, in the 16th century, nobody stayed up on Shavuot night except for extreme Kabbalists. They didn't have coffee. וזהו הסדר שתיקנתי וסידרתי בלילה ההוא. And this is what I organized to take place that night. Torah, שתי הפטרות, פרקי תהילים, שיר השירים, רות, Psuke Divrei Hayamim. And then when we started to learn the Mishnah, Zikeinu Boreinu, our creator, merited us, Venishma et hakol medaber befi hechasid naru kol gadol. A strange voice comes out of Rabbi Karo's mouth. Okay? Venafalnu al paneinu, we fell on our faces. And out of Rabbi Karo's mouth is this strange, non-human voice, okay, that's speaking words. V'adibur hahu medaber imanu va'amar. This is what that voice said. Shimu yedidai hamahadrim min hamahadrim. You wonderful, excellent people more than any others. Ashrechem ba'olam hazeh v'ashrechem ba'olam haba. Happier in this world and in the next. Da ki atem b'nei aliyah. You are superior beings. V'zikitem liot mehechala demalka. And you have become part of the royal retinue. Now, the bits we missed are bits of the Zohar that say, Shavuot is the day of the marriage between Jewish people, God. It is the marriage between the Shekhinah and the Kadosh Baruch Hu, marriage between the Torah and Israel. It's marriage. It is all to do with union, Sfirot. We count the Sfirot, the days that passed from the Omer, from Pesach to Shavuot, like says the Nida, the Safralah, will count days. If you can read the Zohar, have a look, okay? This is replete with significance. The night before the wedding, the Kala stays up all night, accompanied by her, whoever, okay?
Chaperone.
Whatever you say, Shmuley, who are looking after her. And how do they look after her? Torah. They go up in Torah from written Torah to Kabbalah. And those who stay up all night and do that, they do a tikkun. That's why it's called a tikkun. You're being metaken, fixing up the sfirot, fixing up the heavenly representations of God and the Jewish people, Torah and Bnei Israel. That's why it's called a tikkun. Okay? Like a tikkun for a neshama. All this is Kabbalah. Nobody stayed up all night before this, okay? And he continues, V'kol Toratchem v'hevel pichem ala lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And your Torah has ascended before the sphere of Tiferet. V'malachim shatku u'srafim dimamu. And you know, when you're doing your Torah on Erev Shavuot, then the angels are quiet and the srafim, the seraphs, are silent. V'chayot amdu, and the moving chayot have suddenly stopped moving. V'chol tzva ma'ala shomim et kolchem. Imagine that. You're learning on Shavuot night, and the whole of the heavenly host is waiting with bated breath on what you're saying. V'hineni Mishnah bati, I the Mishnah, personification of the Mishnah. That's why we say Mishnah for Neshama during the Shiva, but that's again Kabbalistic. Bati ledaber alechem ve'im hayitem asara yitem mit'ale yoter v'yoter. Would that you were 10, because if you were 10 spheres, you could do tremendous amount, but you're only 2. Well, never mind. Avalim kol ze nit'aletem. You're still superior. You're not like those who are lying in their beds. V'shenim, and they're sleeping. The Shena, he echad mishishim b'mita. The Gemara says sleep is the 60th of death. ואתם נדבקתם בהשם והוא שמח בכם. לכן אשריכם בניי, שובו אל לימודיכם, ואל תפסיקו רגע, ועלו לארץ ישראל. They went to Tzfat. They set up there. The Chaldodi is totally Kabbalistic, Ana B'koach. At the end, in Ashkenaz, they used to rush through it. A little boy would sometimes say it, not from the Amud of the Chazan, but from the Bima, to make a difference. What can you do? Popular request to have a Kabbalat Shabbat, like they did in Tzfat. Veinechem al tachos al kleichem. Go on Aliyah. Don't worry about your possessions in Golus. Ki ani amafaneset lachem v'ani afaneschem. V'atem shalom uveitchem shalom v'chol asher lachem shalom. Kol advarim ha'ele diber eleinu. Shlomo Halevi Alkavet says, and this is what we heard from this mystical being. I mean, it's speaking through like the Havdil, a medium. You know what a medium is at a seance? The medium suddenly is taken over by the spirit of the dead, speaks through the mouth. Anybody been to a real seance here? Ian, have you been to a seance?
No.
Oh, well, there's always an opportunity if you would so desire. But this is not an unusual experience in the mystical world, a world that we are not used to, by and large, I mean us. But voices coming and speaking out of people or skulls or even animals, this is part of the world of mysticism. Now, in this sense, Rabbi Yosef Karo, I mean, of course, there were those who said, no, it never happened. This is just Lashon Hora about a great Rav. They're trying to make him into some Kabbalistic. But one of the great experts on Rabbi Yosef Karo, Verblovsky, wrote the famous book, Joseph Karo, Lawyer and Mystic, says all this is absolutely true. It makes sense in his time, in his place. And Tzfat, to this day, you go and breathe the air on Tzfat, what you breathe, mysticism, no question. The whole city, okay, the old city especially, you think that you're going to meet Eliyahu Navi around the corner, okay? So this happened. He was both a tremendous halachist, but as we've seen in relation to tefillin, when he feels strongly about something, he'll bring in the Zohar, even to the extent of saying it is an Isur Chamur. To put your tefillin on Chol HaMoed. So after hearing all this, what happened? Line 20, after the 3 dots. Az nitchazaknu, od ad or aboker. And so we became fulfilled with enthusiasm. We kept on learning until dawn. Lo pasak girsa mipumana, and we never stopped learning. Begila urada, with joy and in awe. Noam Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz. This is Igeret Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz. It's the Hakdama to the Magid Mesharim, which you can read. Okay. The Shalah, another Ashkenazi, Rabbi Prof, who was a mystic and a Mukubal, Shai Levi Horowitz, he actually published this before the Magid was actually published itself. Chemdat Hayamim is a Hasidic work. Some people said it's a forgery, some people haven't. It's an interesting story. The thing I'm just going to end with is, we won't do the Khatam Sofer, we won't have time, but I want to say a Kiddush on Friday night. I don't know whether you know this. I'm actually going to adopt, I think, Shmuli's suggestion here. Going to hold up a Siddur. I'm not sure that you can see it, but this Siddur has bits and pieces of the Kiddush in small type. Because normally we read the Kiddush and we say Kivanu v'acharta, okay? Ve'otanu kidasha mikol ha'amim. But in some Siddurim, that'll be in brackets, and we don't say it. Has anybody noticed that?
No.
Jean has, okay, and you're
No.
not too. Why?
I
Why?
didn't notice that.
I
You did.
wondered.
So why are these phrases ki hu yom and kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta in brackets?
Mhm.
What is the reason?
Zetzpocher.
Ah, Shmuli, no, this time it's not the Zetzabocha, it's not the typesetter. This is Kabbalah. It's the Zohar. Okay? Zohar says that the number of letters, I'm just going to give this to you very quickly, the number of words in Kiddush have to add up to 70. 70, 7, mystical number, Shabbat, Kiddush, Friday night, 70. How many words in the section Vayechulu, excluding Yom HaShishi? Because that's not
32.
really Vayechulu. The answer is 35. And in order to get 70 and no more, the rest of the Kiddush, which is the bracha of Asher Kiddishanu, has to have 70. You have to get to 70. That also has to be 35. But if you were to say Ki Hu Yom and Kivanu V'Charto Mikol Ha'amim, you'd have more. So
More than 70.
you cut these out to make sure that you only have 70. If you're a Kabbalist or if it's Nusach Sfard. Some people, but most of us, say the Kiddush with these extra words and we don't pay attention to the 70 rule. Now, if we go to our text, we will see, okay, that the Ari follows the Zohar. The Zohar says that, and it's very strict about this, you have to cut out, because we need Tlatin v'chamesh tevin acharinan, kama de'it b'vaychulu, 35, just like you have in Vaychulu. So you have to cut out these extra bits. And if you do not, you're disrespectful to God. Okay? So all those kivanu v'acharta are disrespectful to God. Okay? However, if you look and you forget the Zohar and the Ari and the Shara Kavanot, we go to our halakhic tradition, line 37. Zeu nusach kiddush hayom. This is from the Rambam. Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddush v'tzlan v'ratzah v'shabbat kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim. That's what we say. That's the Rambam. And it's in the Seder of Avram Gaon, and in the Machzor Vitri of the students of Rashi, and the Perush Sidur Tfilah Larokeach of Rabbi Eliezer of Vormaiza, and it's in even Rabbi David Abu Darham, who's the father of Jewish liturgy, 14th century Spain. Minhagei Maharil, of course, Rabbi Yaakov Levi was Maharil. He was the cousin and author of, composer of the Misinai Nigunim, the Chatzi Kaddish, as we say on Yom Tov and Yemim Noraim, of the Leket Yosher, the Li. Let's read the Magen Avraham. Magen Avraham was a great Kabbalist, but nevertheless, Polish Kabbalist Avram Abeli Gumbina, he says, V'li nireh she'en leshanot shum minhag, ki l'chol minhag yesh tam yisod. Don't change your minhag. Why? Gam yesh lomar she'zohar ka'amar תדאי על קידוש של תפילה, שהיא אלוהינו ואלוהי, שהוא גם כן למד ה' תיבות, because it's enough that in the Vaychulu, in the Amida, you have your 35. So 35 of Vaychulu in your silent Amida, 35 in your Kiddush. So that 35 plus 35 gives you 70. Don't need to get involved in censoring bits and pieces from the second bit, Asher Kiddushanu. The Gra is very straight on this. The Gaon of Vilna says, we don't skip this. All of this is simply Kabbalistic. I hear embellishments on the integrity of the Kabbalah to my left. All I will say is that this is an original Kabbalistic idea and certainly is not binding. But here there's a clear contrast between the halakhic tradition and the Kabbalistic tradition. Okay, that's it. We are out of time. Stop share. View. Let's go back to, no, we want full screen.
The text that we have seen of the Magid Mesharim, line 14 to 22, page 2, seems to be in contradiction with the rule Lo Tenachashu. And when there is opposition between those, alors we are doing like the rules, not like the Kabbalah.
I'm just trying to get back to the full screen.
Just press your...
Now I've lost the screen.
Down the bottom, the bottom.
Now I've lost the picture.
Bottom.
No, there's nothing here. I've lost my view and my audio and everything.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Now go to...
It's rather line 23 to 25.
Where am I? Just a second, John. And I can't see anyone.
Oh, then go to view, give it gallery.
We can see you and hear you clearly.
Okay. I'm back. Question is, what is law?
Well, there are much discussion, of course.
That is what
Eliezer.
Law Tanachashu will be in this context if you're going to try and be in touch with Kochot HaTum'ah, impure agencies. If you want to be in touch with a pure agency, you want to be in touch with Metatron, you want to be like Rabbi Yishmael, She'ala Lemala, okay? And he was in touch with the Ish Levush Habadim, whoever it was who told him that the decree of the Roman emperor. Good evening, Brian. You can go. And thanks for the good wishes. You can be in touch with the angels. You can ask questions. You can be a Hasidic Rebbe. In order Mala Mizeh, the Rebbe of Nemirov can go up to heaven, or he can do whatever he does. All of this is a different, completely different ballgame. But you could say this is not the right and appropriate thing to do, certainly for a Maimonidean Jew. Absolutely not. Okay? So, this is the last shiur before we have a 3-week break. A 3-week break. I will not be here. We have in Yirtzeh Hashem a bar mitzvah of a grandson next Wednesday evening. Jack,
Mazel tov.
Bruchim to you, Jack. I'd like to wish you a mazel tov again on Rina and Jonathan.
Thank you, Rabbi. Mazel tov.
Thank you. We had the zchut to be at the wedding, and it was really lovely. You should have a lot of nachas.
Amen. Thank you.
Good, and I was pleased to see Caroline there as well. Good. So we will be off for 3 weeks, and then on the 25th of September, I think, we are going to meet on the Wednesday before Rosh Hashanah, and then we'll be off, and we'll see what happens next. But in the meantime, I want to wish everybody all the best. I've certainly enjoyed the shiurim on the Zohar. I've also learned quite a bit, and I hope that you've been exposed to a different world, and also seeing how that world actually has an impact on ours, a lot more profoundly than one might have thought. So I will say Erev Tov, bonsoir,
Erev Tov.
all the appropriate things. There should be Besorot Tovot, Smachot, Bechorot, and Nechamot, and all being well, we will talk about some theology to perhaps capture the whole theological feeling of the Zohar in a famous extract that real Sephardim say every Friday night, and we'll take it apart very, very slowly and carefully, and perhaps reveal a lot more about the theology and the theosophy of the Zohar. And as I said, we'll see what happens after the Hagim. So all the best to everyone, and as they say, a gesundten Sommer.
Amen.
Amen.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Chodesh Tov, Umevorach.
Chodesh Tov, yeah.
Absolutely. Chodesh Tov.
Good. All the best.
Bye.